Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, coach, God lover, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life show with Joe Rivera. I'm your host, Joe Rivera, and here at the Reforge Your Life show, we like to show you that comebacks are more than possible. And today, I'm so hyped about this guest, man. When I knew he was coming through, I knew we were going to bring some energy, and I'm really looking forward to this. Y'all are going to love this episode. He's a former associate of the Gambino family. He's a drug counselor, and he has got a podcast called Reformed Gangsters. Anthony Ruggiano, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for coming through, brother. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure. I was looking forward to coming here. I heard a lot about you from Pasquale.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things too, man, and I see a lot of good things. So love what you're doing out there. And
Thank you.
I know the story, but there's a lot of people out there who might not know it. And I definitely can't tell it the way you can, you know what I mean? So, man, share your story, your experience with the audience.
Well, you know, the reason why I was associated with the Gambino crime family is because my father was a made member of the Gambino crime family. My father actually was a made member of the Gambino family before it was known as the Gambino family. It was the Magnano family, and Albert Anastasia was the boss. And I was literally born into that life because the year he became a made member is the same year I was born. He used to say that's the best year of his life. He became a father and a made member of the mafia. Lucky me, right? Like, like you couldn't have been like a barber or something, you know? But so I was raised in this atmosphere that was different than other people, you know, and I always knew something was different, but I really didn't know what when I was a little kid. But I knew like things were different. I knew when I went out with him and we walked into a restaurant or somewhere, like the atmosphere changed, you know, and he was treated different than like my friends' fathers. Like we would go to a restaurant, I would go to eat dinner with like maybe one of my friends, and there would be people waiting for tables, and we would have to wait for a table. But when I went to the same restaurant with my father, like we didn't wait for a table. We got right in and we sat down at a table. So I always knew something was different, but I really didn't know what. So it wasn't scary. It wasn't abusive. It was just different. You know, my mother was only a kid when she had me. She was only 19. He was 26. He just got out of prison. So things were different, you know, and I felt that and I knew that, but I didn't know why. Even with my uncles, like my uncles all had jobs, but my father didn't. And it's funny because, you know, when you go to school, you got to ask, they have a thing like, what does your father do for a living? You know, you go to school that day, like, my daddy is a carpenter, my daddy's a police officer. So, you know, when I was in like the 4th grade, we had that day coming. So I went home and I asked my father, like, what do you do for a living? And he's told me he works in the dry cleaners. Like, but I knew that wasn't true, but like I rolled with it. You know, I went to school and I said, my father works in the dry cleaners. And I saw him commit an act of violence. When he had to go buy a car one day, I was about 10 or 11. He went to buy a car, and he had this Jewish fellow with him named Pacey. He was like he was his partner. Like he had a liquor license, so whenever my father opened up a bar, he would put it underneath this guy's name. So we went to this car dealership and to buy a car, and we were in the guy's office, and my father said something to him like maybe that wasn't that intelligent, let's say, or whatever. It was just, and the guy made like an offhanded remark, like insulted him, like basically. And my father reached over and grabbed him by the tie and pulled him and threw him across the desk. And I'm like a little kid, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? You know, and needless to say, he didn't buy the car. So that was like my childhood, you know, and the life lessons I got weren't like a normal life lesson. Like one of the life lessons I got was I was by my Aunt Mary's house in Brooklyn. I was maybe 10, 11 years old, and I'm sitting on a stoop, and a guy across the street pulls out on a scooter, you know, and a roll of money falls out of his pocket. And I go and I pick it up, and it's a roll of money with a rubber band around it. And I go in my aunt's house, and they're all in there smoking, drinking, you know how it was, it's the 60s. And I said, Dad, this money dropped out of the guy across the street's pocket. So he opens it up and he counts it. It was $90. I'll never forget. It was $90. And he rolls it back up and he goes, here, don't spend it all in one store. And the next day, he actually took me to this place called Manor Sports, and I bought a new baseball glove with this guy's money. Like what he should have done was made me return it.
Yeah.
You know, and like brought me back to return the guy's money or gave it to my Aunt Mary. Say, here, bring this to your neighbor's house, you know. But, you know, he didn't. I kept it and I spent it. So these were like this was how I was raised in this atmosphere. And I didn't, so like I said, I really didn't know what he did for a living, but I knew it was different. And then, like, you come from New York, so you know, and I come from the same neighborhood. You come from East New York. That was his neighborhood. He ran East New York. He was raised in East New York. So when I was about 12 or 13, I drifted off my block. We had moved into Ozone Park by then. So, you know, you hang out on your block and you play stickball and all that shit when you're little. And then when you get a little older, you drift off the block and you go hang out on the avenue. So I drifted off the block and I started hanging out by this pizzeria on 101st Avenue. And that's when I found out. And I would go there and guys would say, that's Fat Andy's son. And they would point me out. The older guys would point me out. That's Fat Andy's son. And that's when I found out. I started hearing about the mob stuff. And then he knew I found out. He knew I knew. And then he would take me to club, and that's when I met. So he would take me. There was all mob clubs in Ozone Park, and he would take me to these clubs to introduce me to people, so I wouldn't get hurt, or they would look out for me. And that's when I met John Gotti. I went to the Bergen Fish Club. I met John Gotti. Charlie Wagons. I already knew him. He was the same guy that proposed my father for the mob, and John Gotti was the same. But I already knew him, and that's when I started hearing all these stories about my old man and I started learning about the mob, and I liked it. And then I started getting treated special. Yeah. And then I really liked it. Now I'm getting treated. Now I'm Fat Andy's son. The older guys are taking me out with them. So now I wasn't using yet. So I was still going to school. And then I walked in the park one day, and the guys were smoking weed. And I asked them what that was, and they told me it was marijuana. And I started smoking weed with them, and I liked it. And the next day I met them, we started playing hooky. Then I started fucking around with girls, and that was the end of my education. You know, that was it. About 13, I stopped going to school, and I was in the 7th grade. I stopped going to school. I started playing hooky every day because my father never reprimanded me. He didn't know how to reprimand me. His father died when he was 8 years old. He never had a father. So here's this big gangster in the street, killer, but like he didn't know how to reprimand his kids. Right. You know, he was like a big teddy bear at home. My mother used to beat the shit out of us. You know, in my house, it was like, don't wait, you know, wait till your mother comes home, not wait till your father comes home. So I'm running in the street, I'm playing hooky, I'm smoking weed. You know, it's the 60s. I'm doing what the kids did in the 60s, taking acid, all that bullshit. And then at 16, I got suspended from school. You know, I got suspended from school, and I remember he wasn't happy with that because he really didn't want me in the street. And so I had my first like sit down. We sat down, me, him, and my uncle Frank, his older brother Frank, and we sit down at my kitchen table. And he says to me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go to work. So I'm 16 at the time. He goes, you want to go to work? He goes, all right. He goes, I'll get you in the Cement Masons Union. Because, you know, the mob had all the connections with the unions and everything. I said, he actually wanted me to become a bricklayer, because back then that was a big trade, bricklayer. He said, I'll get you in the Bricklayers Union. I said, I don't want to lay brick. He goes, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to work for you, because now I knew the deal. You know what I mean? Right. I said, I want to work for you. And, you know, and I remember he sat back and he looked at me, and then he leaned forward and he tapped the table and he said to me, well, if you want to work for me, remember, going to jail is all part of the job. Now, I'm 16, you know, now I was raised in this atmosphere, like all the older men I was around were all mob guys. All his friends were mob guys. His partner was a mob guy. My godfather was a mob guy. So I was fine with it. I said, all right, you know, that's it. That's the deal. And then the next day, like I told you earlier, the next day he took me to Elmont, to this club in Elmont that this guy, Philly the Pimp ran. And that was my first job. I worked in a blackjack game. Right. And then I started, like I was in like the minor leagues. I worked in blackjack games, dice, like just in the movies, like in the Bronx Tale, the crap games in the basement. I worked in them. And then like in Goodfellas, He took me to the Copacabana. We got into the basement, through the kitchen. Now I'm living this life. I'm loving it. I'm like Fat Andy's son. I'm 16, 17. I got the keys to the city. Like, it's great. Making crazy money. Like, I'm 17 years old. I'm going in bars now drinking because they all know I'm Fat Andy's son. I'm going in bars and I'm picking up 25-year-old barmaids that are gorgeous. I'm 17 years old.
Yeah.
I'm giving them $20 tips. They're throwing themselves at me. So, like, my life was amazing in my mind. I thought it was amazing. So everything was really good. And then when I was 19, my father's in the music business. He gets in the music business. He gets hooked up with the singer Jay Black from Jay and the Americans, a big group from the 60s. And he takes me to Puerto Rico with him.
Okay.
I'm 19, it's 1972, and I'm in Puerto Rico, and I go up in his suite, and I walk in, and there's a pile of white powder on the table, like a black table like that it was. And I walk up to him, and this guy, Kenny, I go, "What's that?" He goes, "It's cocaine." He goes, "Hey, you want some?" And he handed me a straw. And I bent down, I took a few lines, and I fell in love. It was 72. It was very expensive. Only the beautiful people did it. I came back to New York. I had a connection with some Puerto Rican guy in uptown on 72nd Street. I met him actually in Puerto Rico. So when I left Puerto Rico, I already had a connection to cop coke in Manhattan for when I got back. And I went up there and I got a package, and I went back to my neighborhood and I turned my friends on. And when I got clean, which I'll get into, and I started doing step work, I had to go to a few graves to make amends because I turned them on, you know what I mean? And they died. My cousin Joey and a couple other people. So now I'm 19, I'm doing blow, I'm hanging out in Manhattan, all these great clubs, I'm living really good, I'm living large, and of course now I'm getting arrested. I started getting arrested, and I get arrested in 77, and in 78 I went to jail for the first time.
What'd you go to jail for?
We robbed a liquor warehouse. I went. It was a couple weeks before Christmas, and we robbed this big warehouse, and we got caught in there. And I got 5 years. I went on trial. I got convicted. I got 5 years. Zip 5. They used to give zip bids back then, so I got a zip 5. And it's funny because a couple of days now I know I'm hanging out with the underboss of the Gambino family. I'm hanging out with his son. Now I'm introduced to all the 5 families. I'm like in the mob now. Yeah. And my father, so we're hanging out in the Ravenite, which is on Mulberry Street. And before I went to jail, my father had a going away party for me. Like, it was like I was going off to college. I went to they had food spread out on the table, and everybody's patting me on the back and, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be all right." Just, and schooling me on how to go to jail.
It was glorified, like it was your first piece of ass.
Glorified, like literally I was going to Harvard.
Right.
So. And this was another life lesson I got. Now, this is my father schooling me that now I had to surrender. So I had to surrender like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had to go surrender into the Nassau County Jail because the case was out of Nassau County. So as we're driving to I'm surrendering. I'm going to start doing a bid. And I'm driving to the jail. It's just my father and I. And my father tells me, "Okay, listen, there's 2 things you could do right now that you could do right now." He says, the first thing is, you're going to go to jail. You could either be stressed out and be miserable, or you could get a good book, kick back, make yourself comfortable, because they can't stop the clock. He goes, "You're going to get out." He goes, they could lock the door, they could take away your rights, they could do whatever they want to do, but they can't stop the clock. So now either you're going to go in there and be stressed out, or you're going to go in there and get comfortable, because they can't. And I went in there and I got comfortable. I read my first book in there, Stone for Danny Fisher by Howard Robbins. I was in Sing Sing, and some kid, I needed matches because I smoked then, and I asked this kid for matches, and he goes, "Hey, you want something to read?" And he gave me a book. And that's what I did. So I kicked back and I read a book. And jail didn't faze me. And I was 23. I just got married. I did a great bid. I had everything I wanted. All the COs were on the take, because of the mob. Yeah. And and I did 2.5 years. I got out, and while I was in there, people started freebasing cocaine before crack. Yeah. So when I got out in 80, and my father was in Florida, going back and forth to Florida at the time, and I got introduced to freebasing cocaine, but I really didn't cross over that imaginary line yet into addiction. You know what I mean? Like I was still, I was using a lot, but I don't think, but it still was manageable a little bit at that time. And went back out, and I went right back to the mob. I started making good money again. I'm going back and forth to Florida, and John Gotti is now a captain. I was very close to him. He always looked out for me. I had a great relationship with him, and then in '83, my father got indicted by the feds in Broward County. And he got indicted by the feds, and that's when my life started changing. Then the drugs became more prevalent in my life. Like I started freebasing a little more, and he wound up getting 40 years, and things got out of control for me on my end, and he knew it. He saw it. Everybody saw it. I was taking money off everybody. Things got crazy. And then I would say from '84 to like '88 were like my worst dark years. You know what I mean? I would go visit him. Like I went to visit him one day, and he was in prison, and I went to visit him, and I was on a run. I was 140 pounds. I was like on a 3-day coke run, and I went to visit him, and he's just looking at me, and you know, like I said, got defensive. Is there a problem here? And he goes, yeah, there is a problem. He goes, when I look at you, I want to go back to my cell and fucking hang myself, he told me. And like, I was like devastated, you know, and he walked away. He left the visiting room. But I kept on using.
What did that feel like?
It felt terrible. Terrible. It was terrible. It felt terrible. I was like, but you know what? I actually, I had a package in my car, and even though he said that to me, like I couldn't wait to get out. Like soon as I ran out of the visiting room and I got in the car, like I started blowing coke. Like I was just caught up in that insanity of using. Like everything was about the next one, and I don't even know how that happened. Like it just happened. You know, I didn't know how that happened, because at one point I was like really doing good, and then I wasn't. You know, and then he got, like I said, he got 40 years. And now John Gotti becomes the boss. So the Gambino film, you know, they killed Paul Castellano, who I met twice. He was actually at my wedding in 1977. Paul Castellano, he gave me $500 for my wedding. Yeah. And he wrote, "Love Paul Castellano" on the wedding card. Yeah, I met him twice. Once they clipped my brother's friend. My brother's best friend got murdered, and we had to have a sit down, and he was there. And then at my wedding, you know, and all through this time, there's a lot of violence going on. So there's a lot of violence, and violence is okay. It was okay with me, you know, shootouts, stabbings. I knew people that were getting clipped. My father telling me stories about guys he murdered, and I'm like, I'm loving it. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, you know, like he tells me the story about the first hit he did. He said, I whispered in the guy's ear, like I didn't even know what the fuck he was talking about. What do you mean? He goes, I whispered in his ear, and he went like this, made out he had a gun. Like these were my father-son chats. Yeah. So anyway, the drugs are getting crazy. I'm freebasing. And then in '88, I just woke up one day, man, and I was like, I got to stop. I knew I was going to die, and I was afraid of death. Okay. Like I was afraid of death, and I knew that if I didn't stop what I was doing, I was going to die. And there was a commercial on TV of a nose, and under the nose, a car went up the nose, and a house went up the nose, and it said, if you have a cocaine problem, call 1-800-COCAINE, right? And so I remember I went into the bathroom, and I looked at myself, and I came out, and I was on my bed, and I was going, oh my God, how did this happen to me? And I was like crying. Yeah. And my wife walked in the room, and she said, what's the matter? And I looked up, and I said, I'm dying, Alice, I'm going to die. And that's how I felt. And she says, what could I do? And I told her, call 1-800-COCAINE. And she called it, and this woman answered the phone, Joan DeVanzo, I'll never forget her name, and she said, you know, I could get you a bed in a treatment center in Vermont, but, you know, this is what it's going to cost, and this and that. And I called up my father's partner, another maid guy, Tony Lee, and he came by the house, and I told him, you know, I need to go to treatment. He goes, yeah, you do. He goes, because you're either going to stop or someone's going to shoot you in the head. Because I was taking money off everybody. You know how it is. I didn't give a fuck no more. I was robbing people, coke deals with my finger, putting my life on the line to get drugs, ringing bells, making out I had guns on me. It was just insane, crazy, insane things. So he says to me, as far as I'm concerned, Sonny, you're finished, but I'm going to pay for this. And he paid for it. And I went to this treatment center, and they took me to an NA meeting and an AA meeting, and I got introduced to the 12 steps. But, you know, I just wanted to get clean. I wanted to get clean because I wanted to become a made guy. That was my goal, to become a made guy. So, like I said, I got out of the treatment center, and I was clean for 6 months, and then I picked up 3 times. My first year, I was done. The third time I was like I told you, I was in the Crow's Bay Motor Inn. I was there for a couple of days. I was using, and then I sat on the bed, and I just called up the front desk, and I had a sponsor because I was making meetings then. I was making 12-step meetings, but you know, even that, when I looked at the 12 steps, you know, I wasn't going to write no 4th step. I wasn't going to do no inventory. Like I wasn't willing to go on no spiritual journey, get a heart, God of my understanding. I just wanted to stop using and get back into the mob and make money. I remember the first couple of conversations I had with my sponsor. I said, do I got to stop doing what I'm doing? Do I got to stop stealing? Do I got to stop? He goes, no, you could keep doing what you're doing and stay clean, but you're going to suffer consequences behind your behavior. And I said, you know, and that was okay because I had no skills. I had no skills. I don't know how to do anything but be a criminal. Like my father never taught me how to use tools or nothing. Like I know how to be a bookmaker, a Shylock, you know, that's all I knew. How to run a crap game, how to, you know, after-hour clubs. I knew nothing about the legitimate world. So
Just hit the siren. Yeah, my bad.
So anyway, so I didn't know nothing. I had no skills. So now I'm in this 12-step program. I'm looking at these steps, and I'm going to visit my father. And he's going to me, don't be telling them people at them meetings anything about us. You know what I mean? So like, you know, but thank God I had a sponsor that was an ex-convict, and like he knew the deal. So he never pressured me. You got to do step work. You got to do step work. You know, you understand what I'm talking about. So I ran with the first step. The third time the third relapse, I was done. And I knew the party was over, and I knew I was powerless, and I ran with that first step, and then I started making a lot of money. It was 1989, January '89. I'm back in the mob. I got proposed to become a made member. They put my name in. Now I'm clean. I'm making meetings. I'm making a ton of money in the mob. And 1990, I get arrested with an NA Rock sweatshirt on. And I'm handcuffed, and it's on TV. And guys are calling up my sponsor. Your sponsee's on TV with an NA Rock sweatshirt on in handcuffs. I got arrested in Jamaica, Queens, in a big number policy. We had a big number. Like now it's the lottery. Back then, you know, it was a number business. And we had a major thing going on with my own man and everybody. And I got arrested in 90. And I got out of jail, and I went right back to work. And then I got re-indicted again in March for the same thing, for a state RICO, a racketeering act. And now I'm clean, but I'm still in that world, you know. And I took a plea. I got a 1 1/3 to 4, and I went to jail again, clean. And I went to jail, and I started meetings in jail because I knew that if I stood clean and I stood close to this fellowship, maybe one day I would get it. But I was so insecure because I had no skills. So I went to jail. I did 16 months, and that's when that jail started. It wasn't like the first time, because now I had an 8-year-old son. Daddy, when are you coming home? Daddy, when are you coming home? Yeah. I got out of jail, but I still wasn't willing to give up that life and give up the money. It was just, I couldn't walk away from the table. I got out in 90. I got out in 92. I went right back to the street, making crazy money. I was making tons of money. That was probably, for me, the most successful time in the mob for me personally, on a personal level, like not with my own man involved, like just with me on my own. I started making money. I took over a vending company. But everything I did was illegal. Chop shops, credit cards, bookmaking, everything I did was illegal. I had and the only legitimate thing I had was a hair fair. I had a vending company, but then I had gambling machines on the route. And then I got remarried. And you know, you can't live that lifestyle. You can't be clean and live that lifestyle. You know what I mean? But I didn't use. I refused to use because I knew the drugs would bring me pain, but I couldn't get out of that lifestyle. And now my own man is in jail, and I'm hanging out with all these wise guys, and I'm waiting to get straightened out. And then in 95, I get arrested again. I get arrested for on a big bookmaking case. And I take a plea, I get 2 to 4. While I'm in prison doing a 2 to 4, I get indicted in Miami by the feds. And I got another 10 years.
Wow.
So I wind up doing 8 years and 3 months, stood clean, got out in 2004. But now the wreckage of my past showed up. Because in 1988, because of the mob, I committed a murder.
Okay.
All right. So my brother-in-law beat my mother up. He was in the mob guy. And my father, this is another father-son thing. So my father had to okay us to murder him. So I go up to visit my father, and now a father okays his son to commit a murder. That's the mob life. Yeah. So he okays the murder. John Gotti okays them, because in the mob you got to get permission to commit a murder. You just can't randomly kill people. So I committed this murder with a few guys of my brother-in-law. But now, before I went to jail, a friend of mine comes over to me and tells me, "You think it's time to move on to step 2?" And I went on this retreat to Graymore, and I got with a higher power, and I just went back to, actually I went back to Christ, the Catholic Church, and I felt comfortable, he became my higher power. And while I was in jail, I started to change. I started to develop a conscience while I was in jail, and I wrote a 4th step in jail. And I went on, and I started to go on the spiritual journey, even though I was incarcerated. But when I got out in 2004, because of the wreckage of my past, it caught up to me. I got my first legitimate job when I got out of jail. The first time I got a legitimate job, but I still had 1 foot in the mob and 1 foot out, because I was still waiting for that ceremony, because it got short-circuited because I went to jail. So in 2005, I'm sitting on this bench, and the next thing I know, I'm surrounded by FBI agents again, and I get arrested for the murder. And I got out on bail. I was under house arrest, and it was like I hit a bottom. Like I hit a bottom with the drugs. I hit a bottom with that lifestyle, you know. Yeah. And it was a tough decision. A year, I would pick up the phone and hang up the phone. I would pick up the phone and hang up the phone. I couldn't make the call. Every time I picked up the phone, I would see my father's face. Yeah. You know, and I couldn't do it. And then a street guy actually told me, "You killed guys for your father. He's dead. Just make the call." And then a lawyer called me, because now the mob, it's bullshit. You know, there's no loyalty anymore. At this point, all the good guys were dead. John Gotti was dead. My father was dead. Tony Lee was dead. All the guys the old-time guys that were loyal were all gone. The new guys, they're all full of shit. Nobody's looking out for you. Nobody's helping pay for my lawyers. When I was in jail and my father died, they took a lot of shit from my family, illegal stuff. They stopped giving us our end. It was just a bad situation. So about a year later, a lawyer tells me, "Listen, your co-defendants are going to throw you under the bus." Because I was the last person with him. I picked up my brother-in-law at his house, and I drove him to a club, and I walked him into the club. And when I walked him in, he was murdered. So I was the last person with him. She said, "They're going to throw you under the bus. You need to call the government." And I still couldn't do it, Joe. I still couldn't. The next day, I gave the card to my wife, and I told her, "Listen, make this call and call this guy, but tell him to come see me." I couldn't call. And then she called, and that afternoon, the FBI came to see me, and I cooperated with the government. And they took me out of my house. I'm still clean. And everywhere I went, I made meetings. And I always knew that no matter where I went, I could make a meeting, and I would have people in my life. I knew I would never be alone. And that sort of gave me a little courage to leave my home, because I knew I'd be all right no matter wherever I went, even though I couldn't tell them my real name. Yeah. So I left my house. And I went on, I went to Idaho. I was all over the country. And then I'm in Michigan one day. I'm living in Michigan, and my phone rings. This is a God thing. Like, this is crazy. Because I'm in Michigan, and the phone rings, and it's this guy I know in Florida, Steve, that I stood in contact with. He was my sponsor at one time, and he was the only person, like, really, that knew where I was, knew how to contact me. And my phone rings, and it's Steve. And he says, "Listen, He goes, I just became a program director of a treatment center in Florida. He goes, and I spoke to the owner, and we both feel that you would make a really good counselor. So I says, counselor? I said, what do I know about counseling anybody? He goes, no, listen. He goes, you overcame the mob and all the time you did, and you're clean all these years. You know how to recover. We think with all your life experiences, you can make a really good counselor. He goes, but you got to go back to school.
Right.
I said, school? I'm 60 years old, and I go, come on, Stevie, what am I go back to school? He goes, no, I'm telling you, we'll pay for the school. Think about it. So now, like I said, I had no skills. Like I don't know how to fix anything. I don't even know how to fix a flat. Like my father never taught me how to do anything like that. So I talked it over with my daughter, my kid, my family, and I decided I'm going to do it. I took a leap of faith, and I came to Florida. I went back to school, and I became a counselor in a drug treatment center, and that's what I still do now. 10 years later, but it took a lot. It took a lot of faith, a lot of it took a lot for me to make that move, because the government, the feds, they didn't want me to do it, because they were, it's dangerous down there. And I said, listen, man, I have no skills, and when you people are done with me, you're going to kick me to the curb. Like, how am I going to support myself? Yeah. And I did it. I went to Florida. Me and my cat Mikey, we got in my car and I drove to Florida. That's awesome. I went back to school and I became a counselor, and now it's been 10 years, and that's what I do. That's awesome.
God's work for real.
Without a doubt.
There's a lot to unpack with that story. Yes, it sure is. I'm curious, at 16 years old, and seeing the lifestyle that you experience at that age. What was that like for the mind, and where were you from 16, all the way through? Like what mindset did you have? Because there was a lot of torture you saw, a lot of killing, everything was illegal. Yeah. And you had the world on the platter at that age.
It was, first of all, I lost my conscience. I had no conscience. When I first started working for my father, he took me out one night with him to this bar on Church Avenue in Brooklyn. And we go in this bar. It was a Friday night, and the bar's packed, right? And people would say, hey, Andy, how you doing? About an hour and a half later, maybe 2 hours later, my father says, hey, you notice anything? And I look around, I go, yeah, the bar emptied out. Right? He goes, yeah. He goes, you know why? I go, no. He goes, because I'm here. I go, what do you mean, because you're here? He goes, because I'm here. Because people don't know if I'm here to smack somebody, kill somebody, abuse somebody, so they left. Is that what you want? I was thrilled. Yeah. I was thrilled. I said, I was so impressed. I go, holy shit. People left, because of you. And it worked. He tried to discourage me, but I was thrilled. So I got lost in that. It was an addiction. I got lost in the action. I got lost with the feeling of feeling special, and I had no conscience. I just lost all consciousness. I had no empathy. Like, even with my wife, I cheated. Everybody I knew had a wife and a girlfriend. Yeah. So I did that. Yeah. I had a wife and I had a girlfriend. Like, I had no conscience. Right. And my conscience, when I got clean, before I went back to jail in '96, I started feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. Right. Just like the drugs. I started feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. And then, like I said, a friend of mine came to my house and he told me, don't you think you should move on to step 2? I came to believe in the power greater myself. Yeah. And they took me to this Catholic monastery in Graymoor, New York. And all these priests were all in recovery. Monks. Yeah. And one of them was this guy, Father Egan. He was actually called the junkie priest because he used to help addicts in Manhattan. Right. And I met with him, and I was full of guilt, and I worked the second step with him. And then he took me into this. It was weird because they had this monastery and they had this chapel, and at midnight they called it Midnight Madness. And you went into this chapel and they had old pillars on the floor and candles, and that smell of them old thieves. You know what I mean, with the incense and everything. And he was playing this music, and now you were supposed to cry out to God, and people were crying out to God, and why did this happen to me, and help me, God, and like I just broke down, man. I just broke down, and I just let go at that, and I let go, and that's when things started changing. But before that, because I was raised that way, and like I would go out for dinner, and I would know that Friday they were going to clip you.
Yeah.
And I would go out for dinner and laugh and drink with you and eat dinner with you, and Friday you would be gone.
Conscious out the window.
I mean, look, I picked up my brother-in-law at my sister's house and drove him to his death. I mean, that's how I was wired up to that point. Like I had conversations with my father. My father got mad at me once because I didn't want to kill somebody. He got mad at me. My sister was dating this kid, Chris. But he was a neighborhood kid. He wasn't mobbed up. He didn't know nothing about the mob. No. He was just a kid that used drugs, because now my sister her husband disappeared. She was sniffing heroin. She was all fucked up. And she gets arrested with this kid for credit cards and a stolen car, So I go visit my father, and he says, this kid got Francine arrested and ba, 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 ba. He goes, you know what you got to do here, right? I said, I'm not doing that. I go, yeah, we'll kill everybody she goes with till she meets a brain surgeon. I said, what do you fucking, I'm not doing that. He goes, what do you mean? I go, I'm not doing that. He goes, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it myself. You don't have to do nothing for me. He got mad at me because I told him I don't want to kill this fucking poor kid. Yeah. So now I go back to my neighbor and I sent for this kid, Chris. I go, listen, man, you better get the fuck out of here because you're going.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he left. And I don't see the kid now. But I don't want to ask him, my father, what happened. I don't want to know.
Right.
About a year later, I get a letter from a guy that's in jail. And he goes, listen, there's some kid, Chris, here that's in the yard telling everybody he used to go out with Fat Andy's daughter. Is that you? And I said, oh, thank God he's alive. You know what I mean? He was in jail, So, and that's how my brain was wired. Right, you know what I mean? And the only reason why I didn't kill that kid is because he didn't know anything about the mob. Yeah. He was he was a civilian. If he was mobbed up and he got my sister arrested, he might have went. Yeah. You know what I mean? But so that's just how I got caught up. And I got caught up in the lifestyle just like I got caught up in the drugs.
So speaking of the drugs, I know it's said out there that in the mafia there's like 3 rules, right? Don't sleep with a made man's wife, don't snitch, and don't do drugs.
Yeah, no, don't sell drugs.
Oh, don't sell drugs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, so I got that part wrong. Yeah. All right, so the no conscious part, and then, the first kill.
Yeah.
Right? So what did that look like?
I was not nervous at all. You know what I mean? When we planned the murder for like a couple of months before it happened, the only time I got nervous was when I walked them into the club, and I heard the door, because there was a guy outside that he locked the door. When I heard the door lock behind me, I got a little nervous, but that was it. And then, like I was so empty and so, after he disappeared, like that night, I actually went with his father and went looking for him. Mm. Like that's where my head was at. Right. Like I actually went with his best friend Peter and his father looking for him when I knew he was in the trunk of Dominic's car. Wow. You know what I mean? And that's how I was raised. That's what my father instilled in me. Because now I knew by that point all the people my father killed. I knew all the people, other people. Like he would call you if I went out with you and you were there, and he would say to me, "See, he's a good guy." Mm-hmm. That means you committed a murder. Yeah. He would call you a good guy. Or he would say that guy did a lot of work. Of course, in the mob, they call murder work. Yeah. So, so by that point, I was just led to believe it was okay. That's what we did. And as far as the drugs go, I was lucky because a lot of guys that use drugs got chased. But don't forget, when I was blowing coke, everybody was blowing coke. In the 70s, everybody was doing it. So I was blowing coke with mob guys. I was blowing coke with the underboss of the Gambino's family's kids. You know what I mean? When I started freebasing and things got bad, the only thing that saved me was I was Fat Andy's son.
Right.
And John Gotti just liked me. Otherwise, I probably would have got killed because I was taking money off anybody. I didn't give a fuck who it is. You know, when you want the next one, you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? So the only thing that saved me at that point was that I was Fat Andy's son, and he had a lot of respect. Even though he was in prison, he still commanded a lot of respect. And John Gotti liked me.
Yeah. Thank God he liked you.
Thank God he liked me. Without a doubt, thank God he liked me. And he always liked me. Even when I was in jail, and even when he was in jail, he would write letters to my wife asking how I was, give him a kiss for me. When I got arrested, oh my God, I just heard Anthony got arrested. That poor kid, why don't they leave him alone? The guy always liked me. I think he always liked me because I went to prison at a young age, at 23. I was in the street. I came up through the ranks like the right way, working in, like getting busted with, I was hands-on. I wasn't like, because I was Fat Andy's son, you got to give me an end. You got to give me an envelope. Like I was in it, you know what I mean? And I think he liked that. And we were both Scorpios. For some reason, he liked the fact we were both Scorpios. I don't know why. Thank God. He was born October 27th and I was born October 29th. So we were both Scorpios. And that's what saved me, because you're right. In the mob, there's rules and regulations, you know what I mean? And drug addicts aren't trusted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They aren't trusted. And I got a pass.
So that's a question I have though. Like, drug addicts aren't accepted. So you used to go up to John Gotti's face, geeked out of your mind.
Geeked out of my mind.
What was there? What was the fear like there?
There was no fear. There was no fear. There was nothing. Listen, I was with him one night. We were in Peter Luger's. My father was there too. This is before he was the boss. And we come out and there's everybody's trying to jockey into his car, And he tells my father, Andy, I'm going to take your son with me. I want to talk to him, just me and him. And I go, what the fuck? This guy want to talk to me, right? Right? We get in his car. And there was some incident that happened with this kid, Johnny Garino, that was around him and my brother. And it was some money involved and it was a drug deal, whatever. And I told him, listen, I have no money. I'm broke. I told him, and I was broke that night. I said, I'm broke. So now he knew. I get back to the neighborhood. We go to his brother Richie's club. And we walk in. And he tells my father, your son's broke? No. So my father goes, my son will never be broke as long as I'm alive. Right? So we had a couple of drinks. And now I want to get out of here, right? I want to leave. So I call up my cousin Joey and my friend Robert. They're in this club on 116th Street called I forgot the name. It was on 116th Street and 101st Avenue. I called them up and I tell them to come pick me up. So they come pick me up. They're outside now. I'm leaving. I say goodbye and I'm walking out and he calls me. He goes, oh, wait a second. And he walks up to me and he puts his arm around me and he sticks his hand in my pocket, right? And I walk out, I get in the car, I go in my pocket, and he stuck $5 $100 bills in my pocket. So you know what I did with the 500, right? I went to get an 8-ball, and I went to the bar, the Flight, that was the name of the bar, the Flight 116, the Flight, and I went to and my friends go, who gave you that money? I said, John Gotti. You took money, they were like paranoid, you took money off John. I said, no, he just stuck it in my pocket. And that's just how it was. I was just lucky that way.
He just took a liking to you.
Just took a liking to me. And of course, you know what I did with the money. Like I said, I went and bought an 8-ball and went back to the bar and I blew the 500. But before the night was over, it was gone.
Right. I know all about those nights.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, man, the belief system that you had from 16 years old all the way into your adulthood was all about crime, honesty was out the window.
Gone.
Fucking conscience is out the window. It's about women, drugs, fast life. Money's your higher power at this point.
Big time.
Right? So what are the limited beliefs that you had to crack through in order to get to where you are now? Because man, that belief system was built up from childhood, and there was no morals there.
No, I had to get humble. I had to get humble. Because I always thought life was about the shiny things. Because I was empty. Living that life, I was empty. I had no soul. I was empty. I had no God. And I was empty. And all that stuff, I needed all that stuff to fill that hole up inside me. The girls, the gambling, the money, the action, the drugs. Because I was empty. I had nothing, no spirituality. I had no God. And I was empty. So all that stuff I needed to fill that hole up. And when I got clean, that was the same thing. I thought recovery was shiny things. I thought recovery was make a lot of money, a young girl, getting made, become a made guy in the mafia. My goals of being clean was I needed to put down these drugs because I wanted this. But then through the things that happened to me, the jails, the locked up, I'm in 1995, they raid my house 5 o'clock in the morning. I have a daughter now, a 2-year-old daughter. I'm handcuffed on my couch, and my daughter is telling me, "Daddy, are these your friends?"
Wow.
And I'm going like, "What?" Like now it's like, when I decided to cooperate with the feds, I now want to go make amends. I want to go tell my sister, my poor sister, try to make amends with her. And I go by my mother's house and I tell my sister what happened. She starts screaming and flipping out and runs out of the house. She starts hitting me. She runs out of the house. And my poor mother, sitting at the table in her robe, and she looks at me and she goes, I can't believe he made you do things like that. And then I just I had to be humbled. I had to be humbled, and I had to understand that I didn't need to wear $1,000 suits. I was okay to shop at Walmart. You know what I mean? Like it was okay, to be a productive member of society. Of course, my father used to tell me, "Don't ever feel sorry for the public. They deserve everything they get." He used to tell me, don't ever feel sorry for the public. And we raped the public.
Yeah.
We pillaged and plundered. He used to tell me the government was the mafia. That's the real mafia. Well, he had a point there, but that's a show. Yeah, that's a story for another show. But so I had to be humbled, and I had to go on a spiritual journey to leave that all behind, and make amends. I had to make amends to the people and myself.
Yeah.
And I started going back to church. It took work. It took me, I had to start working on myself. I had to let go of a lot of shit and get humble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of working on yourself, I mean, to go from, the $10,000 suits to shopping at Walmart, there's a lot that has to get let go there, right? You have to stop worrying about what other people think, because I'm sure in the world you came from, you're worrying about what other people are thinking all day, every day, right? So there's a lot of imposter syndrome that pops up. There's a lot of, it creates self-doubt. It creates worry. What were the tools that you used to get through that?
Oh, I started, you're in a 12-step program.
Yeah.
That was a big help to me. When I started doing step work, when I started letting go, I started doing step work. I went back to church. I started praying. I started getting with the God of my understanding, which is Christ. And I started getting reaching out, doing service. I started doing, like, I was living in Michigan. I volunteered to help my church. I started doing things that I would never do. Things that were different, things that were gratifying. Like, I got gratitude out of helping people. I would drive senior citizens. It's funny because I was driving senior citizens to their doctor appointments. I'm living in Michigan. So I was still talking to a couple of guys in New York. And this guy, JJ, who we used to do stick-ups with and everything, but he's got clean. He stopped. He got a legitimate job. I called him up one day. He called me up, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I go, I'm sitting in my car reading a book. He goes, "Why are you sitting in your car reading a book?" I said, "Oh, I drive senior citizens to their doctor's appointments." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Do they know that me and you were stick-up guys?" You know what I mean? Like, and I had to get humble, man. It just keeps going back to that, and working on myself. The 12 steps, God, church. It took a lot of work, and I had to realize that the main thing is I had to realize that it's an inside out job.
Amen.
That's what I had to, and it's funny because my daughter, I didn't know nothing about the internet. I knew nothing about the internet. And my daughter's telling me, you got to get a username. I go, I don't, what username? She goes, you got to have a username. You got to get a username.
Right.
So I'm thinking about my username, and I said, okay, I want to use Inside Out 89. So she goes, what's that?
Love that.
I said, recovery is an inside out job, and I got clean in 1989. And that's, to make a long story short, I had to come to the understanding that it's an inside out job, that the only way I'm going to be happy and successful has to come from the inside, because nothing on the outside is going to do that, because I tried all that and none of it worked.
Right.
Look where it got me, and what happened was, when I started doing the right thing and I started moving forward and doing the right thing, and I became a counselor and I started helping people and I started and I became a productive member of society, one day my phone rings and it's a guy that wants to put me in a show. Like, and I'm going, what the, and now I gotta reveal myself, nobody. And I decided to do it, and I did the show, and then I did Vlad, and then I met Pasquale, and now I got a podcast, Reformed Gangsters, and it's just been a revelation of new things, only because I do the right thing. So now I'm a firm believer. If you do the right thing's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't hurt nobody today. I don't rob nobody. Years ago, if my eyes were open, I was committing a crime.
Right.
Now, if my eyes are open, I'm looking to do the right thing. I'm looking to go to work, help somebody, go to a meeting, help somebody, and just be a productive member of society. So when you do the right thing's going to happen.
Yeah, no, amen to that. And it's also about letting go and letting God.
Without a doubt.
Or
Without a doubt.
understanding that you don't have to drive that wheel by yourself.
No.
Curiosity's asking me though, like, you get this opportunity to come out of protection, to go be a counselor. What's going through your mind at that moment? Because some could say your life is on the fucking line.
Well,
You know
when
what I
I
mean?
first became a counselor, I was under an assumed name. Nobody knew only two people knew who I really was. So I when I shared at meetings and when I worked, like, I would give them just enough. You know what I mean? Like, some things I didn't talk about, some things but everybody knew that my father was in the mob, whatever. And the guys knew was in prison, especially young gangbanger kids that came in front of me that I counsel. I had to get them. So they would think they were big tough guys. Oh yeah, I did 90 days, and I did 90 days on a bus, handcuffed in transit. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, you were in jail. And then that opened the door for me, to talk to them. That opened the door for me to help them. Once they knew that I did time, and I wasn't like some book nerd or some jerk off. You know what I mean? Like that helped them. So that nobody knew who I was. When I got the offer to do the show on Narco Wars, the first show on the History Channel, I had to reveal myself then, because then people were going to know who I really was. And I wasn't concerned about the mob no more, because the mob has changed. It's not like it was. No. They're not killing anybody. I mean, I'm not going to disrespect them and go in their face. But like, I wasn't concerned about getting hurt. And so I revealed myself, and now it's funny because old clients that used to give me, I get DMs now. Oh my God! If I would have only known who you are, I wouldn't have broke your balls like I did. And people don't know. Should we call you Joe? Should we call you Anthony? I said, call me whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, whatever you feel comfortable with. And it's gratifying now. I'm 71 years old, and it's like a whole new life happened. Right. My life has been, I had like 4 lives in one.
You cheated fucking death numerous of times, man.
Oh man, I should have been. It's funny because I was telling that to another guy the other day. Like, the way even when I was using, I should have been dead. With the violence and the drugs and everything. Like, even now, and because I'm healthy and I take care of myself, I could weather the storm. You know, I weather the storms that come, because the storms are going to come no matter how good you are or how bad you are. The storms are going to come.
Absolutely.
You need to have God in your life. You need to have your health. You know, you need to have people that love you. And the only way to do that is to do the right thing.
Life's gonna throw those curveballs, man. You gotta have the body of armor on you in order to get away from those curveballs and knock them out the park.
Without a doubt.
So speaking of, life coming up, life comes up, we get put down to our knees, we get challenged all the time. And I'm a big believer that when you crack through the belief system that you had to crack through, there's some strong core values that are revealed and that we kind of latch on to when times do get rough. Well, I mean, I know obviously you spoke about your spirituality, so that's one core value. What are some other core values that you kind of lean into when things do get difficult?
Honesty, being honest, being kind, but honesty for me, honesty was a big core value because I was never honest.
Yeah.
And I was never honest with myself, with the people around me. Being willing, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Those are the three keys to my life now. Yeah. I got to be open-minded to change, and I got to be willing to change and have the faith to change. It's like what they teach me in recovery. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. So that's how I live my life now. You know what I mean? I'm honest with myself. I'm honest with people around me. I don't have to be dishonest anymore. Yeah. I have to be open-minded to change. I have to be open-minded to new things. I have to be open-minded that it's just okay to do this.
Yeah.
And I got to be willing to change. I got to have the courage and the faith that, like, even to become a counselor, I had to be open-minded. I had to be open-minded to it. And I had to be willing to go back to school, even with the show. I had to be open-minded to, a new I didn't know nothing about podcasts or doing shows or doing interviews or nothing. Yeah. But I just did it, and I'm honest. I got honest and I got open-minded to it, and I'm willing to put myself out there.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
To let myself go and put the truth out there. And like you said, let go and let God. And I'll give you another. And with me too, it was my ego, easing God out. I had to let go of that ego. You know what I mean? I had to let go of that ego. You know what I mean? That it's okay now to cry. I did an interview. I just did the Mob Museum in Vegas. You know what I mean? And I got like tears came out of my eyes, and I got emotional up there in front of 150 people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Back in the day, if you cried in front of those people, you probably would have gotten fucking whacked.
Back in the day, I probably would have robbed half of them. I would have robbed half of them. You know what I mean?
Something else comes up for me though, like as a core value or something powerful that you had to do through this journey. And when I hear your story and I hear everything you've gone through, when we do wrong in our life, a lot of people get eaten up with, with what it is they did wrong, right? And it doesn't get more. It doesn't get any bigger than fucking murdering somebody, right? No. So forgiving.
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, bro. Like, what did that look like for you?
I had to come to the understanding that I could be forgiven, and I'll tell you when it happened. When I first went to Florida, I'm getting emotional. I first went to Florida, I'm on the beach with my friend Steve that got me down there, who I knew he was my sponsor for years. He's still in my life. And I'm on the beach, and we're in the ocean, him and I, and we're swimming in the ocean, and the sun's shining, and I look at him and I go, why me? Why am I here? Why am I not in jail like Ronnie One-Arm that's doing life? Why am I dead? Look at what I did. I killed people. I hurt everybody. Why am I here? And he says, you're here because God is good.
That's right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. Once I came to that point of that, I was forgiven and it was okay and I needed to do the right thing, that's when things started changing for me. That's when I started getting, doing better with myself. Yeah. But it came to that point where, why me? And sometimes I still question it. Sometimes I still say, why me? Why do I have this life? Why am I, why am I in jail doing life? Why did my cousin Joey die in a crack house? I stuck the coke up his nose. He didn't want, I forced, he told me, I don't want that shit. I go, no, try this. It's really good. And he tried it. And at 42, he died in a crack house. His heart exploded.
Yeah.
I got to go to his grave. Why him and not me?
Because God wanted to use you. Man.
Yeah.
God wanted to use you.
Like Stevie told me, God is good.
And now you're being vulnerable and showing your, and telling your story. And that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Man, can you tell the listeners where they could find you and what you got going on now?
Yeah, so you can find me at reformgangsters.com. I got a lot of content on there. I got a Patreon page. It only costs $1 to come on and check it out. I got a lot of stuff on there. I just did the Mob Museum that's going to be coming out soon, and I'm working on a book. I'm working on a lot of things. More information will come, but the main thing is reformgangsters.com. That's my main thing right now. That's what I'm working on the most right now.
All right. That'll all be in the show
And if you need
notes.
to go to treatment or you need a detox, contact us at Reform Gangsters or my email, Anthony Ruggiano Jr. at gmail.com, and I'll help you get into detox and treatment if you need it.
And all your IG's Reform Gangsters also.
Yes.
Okay. A couple of questions that I ask all my guests.
I hope they're not hard ones.
What does the word purpose mean to you?
Purpose means, what does the word purpose mean to me? To have a goal. To have a goal and to accomplish my goal.
Okay. And I mean, goals are important. And for all you listeners.
Goals give me a purpose.
Yeah.
If I have a goal to help, that's it gives me a reason to do something. It gives me a reason to move forward.
There you go. And for the listeners out there, pay attention. When you have the goal, you don't just say, I want this goal to happen.
No, you gotta
take action.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you hear the word reforge.
Reforge?
Yeah. What comes up? What does that mean?
Reforge. Reform? Reform gangs?
Yeah, there you go.
Reforged means to me to reform, to become to reforge, to become a new, reform and become something new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They are tough questions.
All right. And then what's one thing the audience doesn't know that you like to do for fun?
Oh my God. What I like to do for fun? I like to play with my cats.
All right. You're a cat guy. That's
I'm a
cool.
cat guy. I'm not, people get mad at me because I'm not a dog person, but because cats are very misunderstood.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is I like to have, at night, my cat comes in my bedroom and she comes and she lays on my chest.
Okay.
That's I don't really tell many people that because they laugh at me.
I mean, guys, this is a former gangster and all the other shit he's done, and he likes the cat to lay on his chest.
Yeah, she lays on my chest and she paws and she rubs my face with her paw, and she's smart and she doesn't put her nails out. She just rubs my face with her paw.
Oh man, awesome! All right, man. Listen, man. It's been awesome having you on the show. Thank you for coming through.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, the energy was just as I expected, even more, man. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. For all the listeners and viewers, thank y'all for listening, checking it out. And I ask for a favor. For everybody listening, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share because, man, there's somebody out there right now who's struggling to create a comeback in their life, in their business, whatever it is they're looking to do. And they don't have the tools to be able to do that. And you could help save them by sharing the episode because they didn't get to listen. So, like I said, man, thank y'all. Stay productive, stay blessed, and stay profitable.
Amen.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.